Russian missiles struck the Ukrainian capital Kyiv on Sunday in the first such attack on the city in weeks. Up to 4 explosions rang out in the city centre in the early hours of the morning. Buildings smouldered and the streets were covered in debris. Ukraine's police chief Igor Klimenko said at least 5 people had been wounded. Authorities said several people were trapped in the rubble of destroyed buildings. Footage shared by Ukraine's Ministry of Emergency showed a 7-year-old girl being carried out of a damaged building.
On February 2022, the new phase of the conflict between the Russian-Ukraine war, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War, Russia's President Vladimir Putin's goal was to invade Ukraine, overthrow its government, and put an end to Ukraine's desire to join NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They abandoned their attempt to capture Kyiv after a month of failures and shifted their focus to Ukraine's east and also south. Russia currently controls several regions of Ukraine, including Crimea. The war has had a devastating humanitarian impact and resulted in the death of thousands of people. It has also caused over 3 million people to flee Ukraine, creating what the United Nations, the UN, has described as the world's fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II. The United States and also the European Union have joined forces to impose some of the harshest economic sanctions on Russia's government ever imposed. Hundreds of Western manufacturers, such as oil companies, retailers, and fast food chains, have suspended operations in Russia, effectively reversing the country's opening to the West.
Over the past few weeks, the Ukraine-Russia crisis has caused a lot of worry around the world because the conflict between these two countries could lead to war. The biggest issue is Ukraine wants to join NATO. NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is an organization for military alliance consists of 30 countries, including major world powers such as the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Germany. NATO uses a system of collective security where its member states agree to defend each other in response to an attack by any outside party. But Russia does not want Ukraine to join NATO. This is because if Ukraine joins NATO, it will be together with the rival country Russia, which is the US. This is not liked by the region. Russia once promises that Ukraine will absolutely not join the organization at all. This is due to the fact that if Ukraine joins NATO, it will make the NATO control its border. Since NATO is cooperative alliance, it will help if any of its member countries are attacked by a foreign country. If Ukraine is a NATO member, there is a possibility that the alliance will carry out military cooperation to retake Crimea, which was previously invaded by Russia in 2014. This is the main reason why Russia is completely opposed to Ukraine's bid to join NATO. So what Russia is doing now is to pressure Western countries to withdraw their troops in the Eastern European countries and not to expand their influence in Ukraine. Although Ukraine has long wanted to join NATO, but Ukraine has to accept the fact that they cannot join the organization. This is because only 9 out of 30 countries agreed for Ukraine to join NATO.
Good evening, Surabaya. It's 3 p.m. on October 31st. I'm FATIN IRDINA, Vice President of United States of America. The ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia has created numerous issues and problems up to these days, as mentioned by our President, Ms. ZULAIKHA. For example, apart from the NATO issue, the armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine has become a major and grave issue since 2004 until now. On February 2022, the Russian armed force resumed the invasions of neighboring Ukraine, marking the beginning of Europe's deadliest armed conflict in 10 years. The fatal date on on February 24 show Russian invading Ukraine with ground troops attacking from many directions. In addition, on February 25, the Russian tank was seen approaching the city, and following that, another rocket strike hit the capital Kyiv. However, the bloodiest armed conflict between these two nations is more in favor of Russia, since neither NATO or any other nation has been able to help Ukraine in preventing this issue. This is because the global influence of Russia will cause other countries such as Malaysia to fear resolving this armed conflict. Moreover, we can see how Russia violates the rules of armed conflict by disconnecting the hospital access to electricity, water and power. The Russian armed forces also have engaged in the intensive bombardments in the Ukraine civilians. Lastly, many studies indicate that this armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine has resulted in negative implications up to this present day. For example, multiple efforts to ensure a safe evacuation for Ukraine residents have failed due to ongoing bombardment that has destroyed the evacuation transport. To sum up, the option for Ukraine to survive this armed conflict is minimal, as not many other countries are willing to help them. To avoid this armed conflict, the best choice Ukraine could apply is either seek a compromise peace with Russia with all the attendant risks, or continue to fight.
Thank you to the reporter. Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone who is listening to the live news right now. I'm RAUDHAH binti KAMALUDIN, representing related to the role of states, which is United States in Russia-Ukraine conflict. As we all know, United States is an assistance for Ukraine. The main goal of US for bringing the assistance of Ukraine is to promote the growth of a nation that is democratic, prosperous, secure, and fully assimilated into the Euro-Atlantic region. Therefore, during Russia-Ukraine conflict that happened recently, US is taking a part in helping Ukraine by preparing a new security assistance for Ukraine, as well as provide the tools for Ukraine to defend against Russia's assault. In fact, US also considering of how a defense equipment for Ukraine. This is because it will help the government of Ukraine to defend against the Russia's drone as well as the cruise missile attacks. Besides, the United States also continuously showing a support towards Ukraine since January 2021, where they provide around $18.3 billion in providing aids to demonstrate their strong support for Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Since Ukraine is our partner country, we provide assistance to Ukraine and support the allies in the delivery of humanitarian and non-lethal aid, which means that we give the allies confidence that they can send weapons to Ukraine without compromising their own security. NATO and the allies have also provided billions of euros in financial aid to Ukraine. Many allies also provide humanitarian aid to civilians and host millions of Ukrainian refugees. At Madrid Summit in June 2022, allied leaders agreed a strengthened package of support for Ukraine, which includes support in secure communications, fuel, medical supplies, body armor, winter clothing, equipment to counter mines, chemical and biological threats, and portable anti-drone system. Allies also agreed to help Ukraine transition from Soviet-era equipment to modern NATO equipments, boost interoperability with allied forces, and further strengthens Ukrainian defense and security institutions.
Moving on to the next part, I am Secretary of United Nations RAUDHAH binti KAMALUDIN will report to the current live news related to the role of non-state, which is United Nations towards the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In general, United Nations is known as an international organization to preserve the world peace and security, fostering goodwill among nations, and advancing human rights and social progress. UN is considered as an organization that can address global issues by hosting a discussion forum for its 193 members. Hence, during Russia and Ukraine conflict, United Nations is ramping up its efforts by offering essential needs to those in need by delivering emergency foods, water, shelter, as well as medical treatment to the most defenseless in Ukraine, including women, children, and the elderly. Besides, UN also provides emergency assistance and support to people in Ukraine and the neighboring areas, especially to women, children, and the elderly, as well as the persons with disabilities. For example, all 24 of Ukraine's oblasts are home to almost 1,400 UN personnel. From this aspect, it clearly shows that the UN is playing a big role to ensure that the people of Ukraine are having a basic human needs despite of the hectic situation happen.
In response to the Russians and Ukrainian war, our country and our international partners are always united in supporting Ukraine. The UK government has provided a range of economic, humanitarian and defense military aid to Ukraine and imposed additional sanctions on Russia and Belarus. In addition, we have also contributed 2.3 billion euros in military aid to Ukraine and have pledged to match that aid in 2023. We also organizing a training program supported by a number of allies with the aim of training 10,000 new and existing Ukrainian personnel within 120 days.
Hi, my name is Muhammad ZULKIFLI. I am MIDF research economist in Malaysia. Basically, I expected that the most serious implication of the Russian and Ukraine conflict for the world economy will come in the form of higher commodity prices. The prices of the global commodities such as food and oil continue to soar as a result of the crisis. 6 out of 10 Sahel region of Africa are suffering from a combination of a rapid population growth, food risk and water risk. The rises in commodity prices are stripping this country of their ability to mitigate the threats that they are already facing and weakening their capacity to navigate the future crisis. For your information, Ukraine is a major producer of wheat and corn and controls at least 70% of the world market. The war has resulted in an increase in the prices of the corn, soybean and palm oil. This for sure impacted a lot of the country, including Malaysia. The farm animals need these commodities. When the prices of the chicken goes up, the government will increase the selling price of the chicken as well from the farm as to prevent the chicken farmer from facing losses. There will be an increase in the price of the non-controlling goods due to the increases in the oil prices later. When the oil prices rise, the logistic and the operational costs can also increase. The factories and the wholesaler may have to raise their selling prices and the dealer may have to do the same thing. This will definitely reduce the purchasing power of the buyer and inflation will occur significantly in Malaysia and the other country as well, especially in the Europe country. Therefore, the high inflation rate will increase the cost of living of the people and this will reduce their standard of living.
Hi, I'm Miss HANNAN. Okay, from my perspective, one of the most serious problems when the war happened is the food crisis. We can see from the conflict between Ukraine and Russia where it gives a huge impact on the food supply chain globally. According to the United Nations, the problem of mass starvation occurred due to the global food crisis involving more than 10 million people in countries that depend on food supplies from Ukraine and Russia, including Africa, Europe, and Asia. Okay, the World Food Program revealed that the world is currently struggling with the disruption of wheat, corn, and sunflower oil export from Ukraine. The countries such as Armenia, Mongolia, and Eritrea are the countries that depend 100% on wheat import from Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, Turkey and Egypt depend on more than 70% of the wheat supply from these two countries. Furthermore, it's also affecting the market price of wheat. It is reaching its highest rate after 40 years due to this crisis. According to the World Trade Statistics, the price of wheat per bushel reached 12.94 on 7 March 2022. Apart from that, this crisis also influenced the price of crude oil around the world, where the price is uncertain and has potential to continue to rise. This is because there is insufficient oil supply when Gazprom, which is the national oil company of Russia, has blocked the export of oil to the whole world. For example, the supply of gas to European has been reduced by 60% compared to the normal before the war. Therefore, the global food crisis will continue increase if the conflict in Ukraine is not ended immediately and affect food security in countries around the world, or when a country is unable to get enough food to support its people.
Hi, I am Eugene Salosuki. Based on my perspective as a civilian of the Ukraine, the most prominent implications that we can see from the conflict between the Russian and the Ukraine is the humanitarian catastrophe. So this was not wanted by the ordinary people at all, who are going to pay for it later on. Neither the Russia or the Ukrainian who wants the prolonged conflict. So in fact, more than 1,700 people are protesting in the street on February 24, 2022 to show that they are against the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. More than 7 million people of Ukrainians have fled across the border to seek the safety since the Russia has deployed its military into the neighboring Ukraine on 24 February 2022. Bombs and shelling have continually deliberate targeting the homes and infrastructure of the civilian in what could have become the worst infrastructure or the worst humanitarian crisis in the Europe has seen in the decades. On 20 March 2022, at least 902 civilians died and 1,459 were injured. Public infrastructure has also been destroyed, meaning millions of people are without adequate water, heat, and electricity, or even unable to reach to store to buy the basic necessity to survive because the roads and the bridges are unpassable. With the Ukrainian cold and winter months approaching, families are seeking shelter in a damaged building, which is not suitable to live, and dealing with the sudden drop of temperature or heavy snowfall. So it is indeed a humanitarian crisis occurring, and a lot of innocent people, including men, women, children, or even elderly, are being jeopardized by this conflict.
Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Dr. HANNAN. The implication of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia that I can say is it gives negative impact to the health care of these citizens. The use of chemical and biological weapons in warfare result in continuing adverse effect on the health of the population. The process of enriching uranium to generate nuclear reactors, especially to produce weapons, will produce approximately 70% of uranium oxide gas. This gas can cause various diseases to the people when they inhale the gas that spread in the air, such as asthma, cancer, brain damage, diabetes, and Parkinson. Hence, these children and elderly are those who have the potential to suffer from this disease because they have lower immunity in their body. In addition, the ongoing war will cause emotional disturbance to the Ukrainian, especially to the young. According to World Health Organization, mental health problems among Ukrainian youth take a long time to recover as before. The evidence from post-traumatic stress disorder clarify that the recovery process of mental health, such as stress, pressure, anxiety, among Ukrainians was quite slow during the war. Therefore, the COVID-19 cases in Ukraine increased during Russian attack. This is because it has disrupted the public access to healthcare, including vaccination, testing, and treatment for COVID-19. The World Health Organization report that only less than 40% of Ukrainians is vaccinated. Furthermore, on 10 February 2020, Ukraine reported the highest number of daily cases, which was 37,000 cases. This is due to the people had to gather in bomb shelter with a large capacity, so there is no social distancing between each other. As a result, the virus is easily spread and affected by the public.
I'm Professor HAZIQ from University of Oxford, and I will analyze the impact and also give some recommendations for the Russian and also Ukraine war. There is a couple of recommendations that can be implemented for the Russian and also Ukraine war. Firstly, commodity prices will remain elevated and lead to global inflation. Try to fix the inflation. Monetary authorities are increasing interest rates at a speed that will push economies into recession. The goal is to cool off the economy, reducing consumption to reduce prices. The desperation of central banks reflects that of ordinary citizens. Governments around the world are already beginning to be held to account as voters voice their malcontent with the leadership they hold responsible for economic mismanagement. Secondly, about the supply chains will be disrupted. The business community needs to diversify markets and supply and also payment currencies. Actively negotiate with partners on freight plans and also business methods. At the same time, businesses need to review contracts and legal documents to ensure proactive in case of disputes. In addition, enterprises participating in export activities should not applying risk prevention measures in payment when signing and performing contracts. Thirdly, humanitarian catastrophe. We can use humanitarian aid as a set of action taken to help protect and also defend people affected by a disaster that affects their lives and also means of survival. Aid efforts are therefore intended to safeguard human life, relieve suffering, maintain decent conditions, and also guarantee access to basic services such as food, medical attention, water, and shelter. Humanitarian aid must also protect basic rights by defending human rights, bearing witness, denouncing, exerting political pressure, and also providing support. Lastly, regarding the healthcare problem, we can educate about self-recognition of symptoms of mental health disorders and also overcome the social and linguistic barriers to accessing mental health services. This can be done through various approaches, including evidence-based virtual self-help, interventions involving coping techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, and also enhancing awareness through person-centered and also community-driven strategies tailored to the pandemic and also war-related concerns. Ensure the provision of services for the well-being and urgent safe, socially acceptable basic services to protect the dignity of people with the help of local support groups, non-governmental agencies, and also international coordination. And also we also can have collaborative mechanism. Priority should be given to providing quality and also continuity of care to the population with pre-existing mental health conditions, chronic diseases, financially unstable groups, and also those with limited access to healthcare.
To sum up, Russia's invasion of Ukraine's national sovereignty gave a negative consequences to geopolitics and social in Europe. This is because the citizens live in misery as they lost their home, family, and have problems due to the war. In addition, the conflict has also given a bad impact on the global community. The world has a food security problem when Ukraine and Russia block daily necessities to other countries. In fact, this war also has opened the mind of other countries not to depend too much on the superpower country to avoid from being suppressed. That's all from me. Thank you.